there's a camera on me, and that's how it's going to be. But there's a lot of people out there in the media or on TV that they think they know a lot of things, and they're just blatantly wrong about a lot of things. And I ride for Steph. I ride for these girls. Steph has my back more than anybody. So
those words, spoken directly by Caitlin Clark during her tense June 3rd media availability, were supposed to put out the fire. But instead, they have only added fuel to a raging inferno that threatens to completely derail the Indiana Fever season. What we are witnessing right now is not just a standard rough patch for a professional basketball team. This is a full-blown organizational crisis, a high-stakes clash of egos, and a locker room lockdown that has sent shockwaves through the entire sports world. The cracks in the foundation finally burst wide open on May 30th during a catastrophic 100-84 blowout loss against the Portland Fire, a game that will be remembered not for the final score, but for the moment the golden girl of women's basketball reached her absolute breaking point on national television. To understand how we got here, we have to look at the exact anatomy of that first quarter collapse against Portland. The energy inside the arena was tense from the opening tip, but nobody expected the absolute meltdown that occurred with 6 minutes and 30 seconds remaining in the first quarter. Indiana head coach Stephanie White, clearly fed up with the lack of defensive execution and sloppy offensive sets, made a radical decision that stunned everyone in attendance. In one swift motion, she subbed out her entire core, pulling Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull from the floor simultaneously. As Clark walked toward the bench, the cameras caught a highly visible, incredibly heated verbal exchange between the superstar point guard and her head coach. This was not a standard player-coach check-in. This was raw, unfiltered frustration. Clark's body language screamed defiance, while Coach White stood her ground, firing back with equal intensity before turning her back to focus on the floor. The immediate fallout on the court was devastating. With the franchise cornerstones sitting on the bench, the Portland Fire immediately seized the momentum, unleashing a brutal 19-4 run that effectively buried the Fever before the first quarter even concluded. By the time Clark was reinserted into the lineup, the damage was completely irreversible. The game spiraled into an embarrassing rout, and Clark finished the night with a meager 6 points. That performance tied her lowest scoring output since June of 24, a staggering statistic for a player expected to rewrite record books every single night. The atmosphere in the arena was toxic, but what happened after the final buzzer is what really has the entire league talking. Instead of the usual post-game media routine, the doors to the Indiana locker room remained firmly shut for nearly 2 hours. The media waited in near silence as rumors began to swirl through the corridors. Later, Fever guard Sophie Cunningham pulled back the curtain on what actually transpired behind those locked doors. According to Cunningham, the massive meeting began as a standard, albeit incredibly tense, coaches' session. The staff was dissecting the absolute lack of effort and the glaring disconnect on the floor. However, as the minutes ticked by, the meeting evolved into a closed-door, player-led grievance session. The veterans and the young core were forced to look each other in the eye and address the underlying friction that has been building since training camp. When you have a generational talent like Clark entering an established locker room, shifting the entire financial, media, and cultural landscape of a franchise overnight, resentment is almost inevitable. Sources close to the team indicate that this meeting was an absolute pressure cooker, with players demanding accountability from one another, while Coach White made it clear that no single individual, regardless of their star power, is above the team's system. By the time Caitlin Clark took the microphone on June 3rd, the narrative of a fractured locker room was already dominating every sports network in America. Clark tried her best to downplay the sideline altercation, claiming it was just two fiercely competitive individuals who desperately want to win. She insisted that Coach White has her back more than anybody, and blasted the media for being blatantly wrong about their relationship. But seasoned analysts noticed the underlying stress in her voice. Clark went on to shoulder the entire blame for the team's mediocre 4-4 record, stating that as the point guard, the winning and losing falls squarely on her shoulders. She admitted that she needs to look herself in the mirror and find ways to make the team better. While her public comments showed immense maturity, the reality on the ground tells a vastly different story. The pressure being applied to this 24-year-old athlete has officially crossed into the realm of the unsustainable. This sentiment was echoed beautifully by Dallas Wings guard Paige Bueckers on June 2nd. Bueckers, who has shared a fierce but respectful rivalry with Clark since their collegiate days, didn't hold back when asked about the situation. She described the external expectations placed on Clark as completely inhumane. Bueckers pointed out that the media and the fans expect Clark to be absolutely perfect every single night. And the moment she shoots poorly or has an off night, her entire capability is brought into question. Bueckers called the treatment completely unfair, highlighting a fundamental truth that many casual fans ignore. Clark is navigating a league full of elite, physical, and deeply competitive veterans who are actively targeting her on a nightly basis, all while trying to adjust to a brand new coaching philosophy under Stephanie White. Just as the team was attempting to stabilize the narrative, a massive online explosion occurred on Thursday, June 4th, courtesy of two-time NBA champion Michael Thompson. Thompson, who serves as the Lakers' radio color commentator and is deeply embedded in professional basketball circles, took to social media and dropped an absolute bombshell. He posted that he was hearing from a highly reliable source that the Indiana Fever no longer want Caitlin Clark, openly urging the Los Angeles Sparks to go get her immediately. While mainstream sports outlets have treated this as an unverified rumor, the sheer fact that an NBA veteran with Thompson's connections would publicly broadcast such a statement shows just how volatile the situation in Indiana has become. Even if the Fever front office has absolutely zero intention of trading their billion-dollar asset, the public perception of instability is doing catastrophic damage to the team's focus. Compounding the chaos on the court is an ongoing, aggressive war between the Fever front office and the media corps. In a stunning move during the first week of June, the Indiana Fever officially revoked the press credentials of a prominent local beat writer. The controversy erupted after the writer published an investigative report claiming that Clark was being withheld from specific team activities due to a strategic management plan. The writer later tried to clarify that the phrasing was intended to highlight precautionary measures regarding lingering physical wear and tear from her grueling schedule over the past year, rather than a standard load management situation. However, the Fever Public Relations Department took massive offense to the report, viewing it as a direct attempt to undermine the coaching staff's narrative and create unnecessary panic among the fan base. By pulling the writer's credentials, the front office sent a clear and chilling message to the media. Control the narrative, or you will lose your access entirely. This heavy-handed approach has backfired spectacularly, creating an adversarial environment where reporters are digging even deeper to find the truth behind the locker room walls. So where does this franchise go from here? At 4-4, the Fever are sitting dead center in the standings, playing exactly like the mediocre team they currently are. The tactical disconnect between Clark's preferred fast-paced, transition-heavy style of play and Coach White's rigid, half-court defensive system is painfully obvious. When Clark is forced to slow down and execute complex sets without proper screening or off-ball movement from her teammates, she becomes vulnerable to traps and double teams, leading to the low-scoring disasters like the one we saw against Portland. The 2-hour locker room lockdown was supposed to be a turning point, a moment of radical honesty that would bind this team together. Instead, with trade rumors intensifying, media wars escalating, and sideline arguments becoming public spectacles, the Indiana Fever are balancing on an absolute razor's edge. If Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark cannot find a way to merge their basketball philosophies and coexist under this inhumane spotlight, this historic season won't end with a championship run. It will end in one of the most spectacular organizational collapses in the history of professional sports.